like to thank Sigma-Sci, Integrated Pharma Services, and Avignon for their support of Washington Academy of Sciences. Our speaker for tonight is Dr. Dawn Tilbury. She will be talking about advancing the frontiers of science and engineering, NSF's big ideas. Dr. Tilbury is a professor of mechanical engineering and electrical engineering at the University of Michigan. She received her BS in electrical engineering, summa cum laude, from the University of Minnesota. Dr. Tilbury earned her master's degree in electrical engineering and then her PhD in electrical engineering and computer science from the University of California in Berkeley. She became a professor at the University of Michigan in 2007. She has served as Associate Dean for Research, Associate Dean for Research and Graduate Education, Chair of the Robotics Steering Committee, and other critical positions at the university and other organizations such as the National Science Foundation, where she currently serves. Dr. Tilbury has numerous honors and awards. She has published many journal articles and authored several books. The Washington Academy of Sciences is privileged to have Dr. Tilbury tonight as our keynote speaker.
Well, thank you very much. I'm very happy to have this opportunity tonight to tell you a little bit about what we're doing at the National Science Foundation and our big ideas that we rolled out last year. So, I'm the Assistant Director for Engineering, so I oversee all of the engineering programs at the National Science Foundation and work with the other directors to put together new programs and have new ideas about what NSF should be doing. So this is a picture of our new building. We used to be next door here at 4201 Wilson Boulevard. We are now on the Eisenhower Avenue Metro Station. You can see the metro running right in front of our building there in Alexandria. And the mission of the National Science Foundation, which was founded shortly after World War II, is really to, you can read it right here, this was written in the Congressional Charter, to promote the progress of science, advance the national health, prosperity, and welfare, and to secure the national defense. So after World War II and all of the scientific accomplishments that went into helping the United States win that war, the president at the time, Franklin Roosevelt, understood that basic scientific research was critical to the United States and to our both military and commercial enterprises. So he understood that there was required continued federal funding for basic science and technology for both military and civilian purposes. He wrote to Vannevar Bush, who was at MIT at the time and also worked extensively in the war effort, to ask him to come up with a plan for the federal government to continue to support this basic research. And he maintained in his report to the president in 1945 that the basic scientific research was really the pacemaker of technological progress. New products and new processes do not appear full-grown. They're founded on new principles and new conceptions, which in turn are painstakingly developed by research in the purest realms of science. So it took a few years for Congress to come around to this idea and come up with what would become the National Science Foundation. But we were founded in 1950 with this particular mission. And we are the only federal agency that funds all fields of science and engineering. You can see here all the different types of science and engineering that we fund. We also fund education in science and engineering and the STEM fields, right? Science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. The only thing we don't fund is things related to human health and disease, which are in the purview of NIH. But pretty much everything else is in the purview of NSF. So you can think of, we do everything from astronomy which is unlocking the secrets of the universe, to zoology, understanding how animals behave, and everything in between that A and Z. Our fiscal year 17 budget was about $7.5 billion, and 93% of that money went out the door, primarily to fund basic research at universities with faculty and graduate students working on those projects in every part of the country to help increase our competitiveness. So these basic research projects help answer questions about how things work in the world, and we use that information to design new products, new processes, and new technologies. So I mentioned that last year we announced these 10 big ideas for future investments that we identified, we in the National Science Foundation, as areas that are ripe for rapid advancement and also the potential for significant societal impact. In my opinion, these ideas also help communicate our activities to the general public. Instead of telling our neighbors that we're doing research in geosciences and behavioral sciences, we can say we're looking at harnessing the data revolution, or understanding the rules of life, or defining the future of work at the human technology frontier, which might be more understandable to the general public. I'm going to talk about all of these different ideas in various levels of detail as we go through the talk this evening, I guess. So 6 of these ideas are what we call research big ideas, and they all involve researchers from multiple different areas of NSF. None of these can be done with purely engineering or purely physicists or purely biologists. You need multiple different faculty and students working together. Engineering is one of the few directorates that participates in all of the big ideas, because engineering really is a systems discipline where we bring different things together. So one of these big ideas is the quantum leap. And in the quantum leap, we're looking at designing new devices and networks that can enable us to take this quantum leap into the next dimension and start using quantum physics, so-called spooky action at a distance, to revolutionize computing and communications. Quantum computers may someday crack all of the cryptography codes that we've been depending on to secure our financial systems. But on the other hand, quantum cryptography may turn out to be ultimately unbreakable due to the laws of physics that govern the coherence between coupled qubits. So NSF researchers are on the frontiers of these advances in quantum computing and communication, with engineers, physicists, and computer sciences working to solve these difficult problems, understanding the basic physics and chemistry at the lowest level, how to build these together into devices that can be used for computing and communication, and then what kinds of algorithms need to run on these new quantum computers where things are not 0 or 1, but probabilistic states in between. Understanding the rules of life has the goal of predicting the phenotype of an organism from the knowledge of its genotype and environment. Now that may sound like a purely biological problem, but engineers are working to create synthetic cells that reduce life to its simplest essences. These basic biological building blocks can be engineered to help us understand how cells coherently process information. Insights gained through this understanding of basic biology and chemistry in these simple cells can be used to design and engineer new types of useful reactions, such as producing biofuels or cleaning up and processing toxic wastes that are present in the soils. In the summer of 2017, less than a year ago, the first ship to traverse the Arctic Northern Sea route without assistance from an ice-breaking vessel completed its journey. The ice is melting in the Arctic at a faster rate than has ever been observed before. That transformational moment when the ship made it through the sea route in the north drives home both the opportunity and the imperative for the United States, which has an important Arctic presence, to ready itself for the new Arctic environment. Changes in the Arctic will fundamentally alter climate, weather, and ecosystems globally in ways that we do not fully understand, but will have profound impacts on the world's economy and security. The rapid loss of sea ice in the Arctic will open up new access to the Arctic resources, such as fossil fuels, minerals, and fisheries. And these resources are attracting global interest from Asia, Russia, and other parts of the globe that understand as the population continues to increase, we're going to need more access to natural resources. So NSF's big idea of navigating the new Arctic is both about understanding those changes, predicting how they're going to evolve across marine systems, atmospheric and social systems, as well as engineering and infrastructure, both urban and rural in the Arctic, and how the changes in natural ecosystems such as thawing permafrost and retreating sea ice will affect the area, and what we can do about it to both take advantage of it and mitigate the changes that are coming. Windows on the Universe is exploring the biggest mysteries of all, the origins and composition of the cosmos. Humans have been looking into the heavens since the beginning of time, and Galileo introduced technology, the optical telescope, that offered a deeper and more expansive view. Telescopes continue to get better. For years, we've been making observations across the known electromagnetic spectrum, from radio waves to gamma waves, and many great discoveries have been made. We've been capturing particles and other matter that arrive at the Earth, including meteorites and neutrinos. Recently, through the NSF-funded LIGO, the Laser Interferometer Gravitational Observatory, we've demonstrated that we can measure gravitational waves, first predicted by Einstein more than 100 years ago, who thought that the effect was of no practical interest because it was too small to be detected. Over the decades of funding, more than $1 billion in total so far, the sensitivity of detection had to increase by 7 orders of magnitude, an impressive engineering accomplishment. And as we've all heard over the news and the Nobel Prizes, we've been able to detect the merger of black holes, and we look forward to seeing what these new windows, and indeed the combination of multiple windows in the multi-messenger astrophysics, can show and tell us about the universe. For your information, the top picture there is one of the sites of LIGO, the Gravitational Observatory, which has a multi-kilometer long vacuum tube between two suspended orbs to detect these gravitational vibrations. On the bottom left is the ice cube. This is the neutrino detector at the South Pole. That's a kilometer-deep cube in the ice that detects these neutrino particles that are coming at us fast and furious, but mostly go through without doing anything. So they detect a few hundreds of these every now and then. And then on the right is a radio observatory in Chile, just in case you were curious about the 3 different windows that we now can try to put together and understand what's happening far away. So harnessing the data revolution is one that I'm going to talk a little bit more about, because this is one of the 2 research big ideas that NSF is looking to accelerate, and I'll talk about the acceleration process at the end of the talk. So we've all heard that data is the new oil. It's the key resource that we need to push our businesses and our economy forward. It's also the key to understanding ourselves and our society and the world that we live in. In many cases, the data has always been there, but it was hard to sample, or hard to store, or hard to work with. But with huge advances in computing, networking, and storage, it is now much easier to sample data, save it, store it, and analyze it. And so this big idea is about how can we harness this data to improve our world and make it better. Scientific discovery is evolving from a basis in experiment to theory through computational, where very complex phenomena can be simulated, and now looking at what can be learned by combining these previous approaches with large-scale data sets and high-performance computing. You've heard of the 4th Industrial Revolution. This is pitched as the 4th paradigm of scientific discovery. So the approach taken by NSF to address this data revolution is a three-piece approach that goes along with what we do at NSF, mostly basic research, funding the basic research in the theoretical foundations that underlie data science, as well as the foundational systems that will be used to address this type of data science. Every scientific discipline needs to have a structure for the data that it uses, metadata, ontologies, APIs, and models to describe how the different data fit together. You can't just take a database with atmospheric observations and connect it to a weather model without carefully describing and defining how they should interconnect. Then imagine how to add in the ocean observations and maybe some survey data. What about some Twitter feeds? Lots of potential to put that all together, but lots of connections, maps, and glues will be required. In the early days, there will probably be some connections that look like chewing gum and baling wire, but as the fields mature, we believe the values of these connections will be demonstrated, and they'll evolve to become standard practice for these types of interconnecting large data sets. NSF also has a strong educational mission, and students across the spectrum will need to be educated in how to use this data in an efficient and ethical manner. Lots of opportunities to use this data in the wrong way, as I'm sure you've read about in the news. We just sponsored a report by the National Academies on the future of data science in the undergraduate curriculum. And not surprisingly, they recommended that all students should have some form of instruction in data science because they will be expected to be numerate in the future, just as past generations needed to be literate. Finally, to handle all of this data and computation, advanced computing systems will be needed. NSF will continue its investments in advanced cyber infrastructure and also continue to partner with commercial vendors in this area. So we envision that in the future, all different domains of science will be transformed by this data revolution, bringing the data from each domain and perhaps across multiple domains together through the foundations in data science and the systems and algorithms that they work on, using the cyber infrastructure and, of course, an educated workforce to advance the frontiers of science in all domains. The next big idea that I'll talk about a little bit more extensively is the future of work. We see it all the time. The world of work is changing and is going to continue to change in the future, probably faster than it already is. Many people are afraid that robots are going to take their jobs away, and some jobs will be replaced by robots. But history tells us time and time again that although technology replaces some jobs, imagine typesetting, farming, assembly, in the end there are more jobs, although the jobs that come are different than the jobs that used to be. And this disruption and the people that are affected by that disruption, they need to be considered. So the major transformations in work are being driven by these new and emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotics, etc. These new technologies are enabling instantaneous dynamic interaction between humans and machines in unprecedented ways. The transformation will change the way we produce goods, services, and collaborate with colleagues as well as with technology. So we want to understand how humans are going to work with technology, with robots, with artificial intelligence to make a more productive future that is better for all humanity. One of the drivers of change is the rapid pace of technological development. Computers are getting faster, networks are getting faster, costs are going down. The Internet of Things is connecting everything, your car to your refrigerator to your smartphone. But this technology also creates a lot of questions that we need to understand about privacy and the ethical use of that data. So these are the types of things that NSF is interested to consider in their research programs. So why does this work? Why does this matter? Well, it matters for a lot of reasons. Obviously, our country depends on the work that we do. The productivity drives economic growth. Employment is important for people and communities, and it's important for people to have opportunities to be productive. Oh, thank you very much. So one view is that the jobs that are offset would be surpassed by the creation of new jobs and industries. And we believe that there will be disruption in the workforce, as we discussed earlier. But many of you saw the wonderful movie The Hidden Figures, where the 1960s at NASA were the computers who were doing the calculations to compute the orbits for the trajectories for the launches, but they got replaced by this IBM supercomputer. On the other hand, they trained themselves to program that computer, so you can see that the jobs that they did afterwards were different than the jobs that they were before. But new and different technology-driven changes will require training, education, and public policy to address those types of needs in the changing workforce. So NSF technology is already changing the workforce. Here's a couple of examples. The glove on the left is actually a robot, meaning it has sensing and actuation and decision-making in it, and it fits on the hand of an impaired stroke victim who can now pick up objects with dexterity that was unable to do before. In the middle, you see additive manufacturing, or 3D printing, which turns individuals into producers and enabling them to start new small businesses for different types of products that they produce. And on the right-hand side, you see using transmission and processing of sound waves to detect clogs in sewer lines, instead of sending down a camera or having a person go down there themselves to look with their own eyes. So again, using technology in partnership with humans to create more productive economy. So NSF believes that we support the fundamental science across all scientific disciplines to engage the research community to build the future of work at the human technology frontier. Understanding and building that partnership between humans and technologies, both from the technical side of view and from the social sciences point of view. How do people work with these technologies? How can they work more productively with them? Designing new technologies to augment human performance and illuminate the socio-technical landscape, not just one human and one machine, but a community or a factory full of humans and machines working together. And of course, learning and training and the educational workforce. These are the 4 themes that we plan to build this big idea around to create the future of work. Obviously, this is not something that the National Science Foundation can do alone. We work with many partners, universities, industries, other government agencies, etc. But we're defining what this new direction is going to be. Now I'd like to talk briefly about the 4 process ideas. The mid-scale picture that you see with the big gap in the middle of the bridge indicates that currently the National Science Foundation does not have a good way to fund research infrastructure that's between $4 and $70 million. Anything less than $4 million can be submitted to our MRI program, and over $70 million goes into our MRAFC program. So for the pieces in between, we sent out a request for information last year asking for input into what types of research infrastructure people would need in that gap, and got more than 200 responses. So we're currently working out methods to address that gap and create a new program. NSF identifies convergence as having 2 primary characteristics. The first is that there's a deep integration across disciplines. As experts from different disciplines pursue common research challenges, their knowledge, theories, data, methods, and communities and languages become increasingly intermingled and integrated. New frameworks, paradigms, or disciplines can form from these sustained interactions. As you can imagine, all of the research big ideas, we believe, require a convergent approach to research, multiple disciplines coming together in a deep, interconnected way. The other aspect of convergence, is we believe, is that it has to be driven by a specific and compelling challenge. You can't just throw a biologist and a mathematician and a computer scientist in a room and say, well, see what you can come up with. I'm sure they come up with something interesting. But if you really want it to be convergent, they have to be tackling a specific problem and working towards a specific goal. Now, current national challenges that we're facing, such as clean water, sustainable energy, personalized medicine, these are big challenges that require this convergent approach. And we need to make changes in the way we educate students so they're prepared to conduct this type of research. In my experience, students are really inspired by working on these challenging problems, but they don't always have the tools required to collaborate across disciplines. Faculty also need to learn these tools, and they also need to learn to speak more languages. So I'll tell a story. A few years ago, I was working with a colleague in psychology. She studies emotions in children, and I study control, and so we were going to do this experiment out about how children learn to control their emotions. And so we were writing this proposal, and I drew a plot on the whiteboard of this variable x that was changing over time. And she was shocked. She said, "Variables don't change over time." And I said, "Of course they do. That's why we call them variables." But in her mind, in this study that we were doing, the variable was whether the child was from the US or from China. It was not going to change over the course of the study. I mean, maybe they would move, but it wasn't changing over time. But to me, the variable was how active the children were. We had planned to strap accelerometers to their waists, and we were going to capture their activity, which of course that was going to change over time. She told me that was the metric. So they thought we knew what we were talking about, but we really needed to understand each other deeply so we could get the right language that would allow this convergent research. It does require people to take the time to understand the different disciplines, but we believe that the outcomes can be very powerful and have big impacts on the community. So NSF Includes is a comprehensive initiative to enhance the U.S. leadership in science and engineering by proactively seeking and developing STEM talent from all sectors and groups in our society. By facilitating partnerships, communication, and cooperation, NSF plans to build up and scale on what works in broadening participation programs to reach underserved populations nationwide. Women now receive more than half of all undergraduate degrees. Over my career, women's enrollment in professional schools has grown significantly. Last fall, there were more women in medical school more women first-year students in medical school than men. Law schools are nearly half women, and business schools are about 40%. However, the enrollment of women in engineering is still hovering around 20%, even as the overall enrollment in engineering has increased significantly. In addition, although kindergarten classrooms in the U.S. last fall had only a minority of white students, by some accounts, the percentage of underrepresented minorities in engineering is moving in the wrong direction, even as enrollments are increasing. Now, when I was an undergraduate at the University of Minnesota, there were no women's rooms in the electrical engineering building. At least the building was connected to mechanical engineering, so we didn't have to walk outside in the Minnesota winter to use the facility. Also, at one point in my undergraduate career, a faculty member told me I should transfer out of engineering because it's not a good field for women. When I was getting close to graduation, I was sent a letter by the department congratulating me on my outstanding academic performance and inviting me to apply to graduate school. Now, although I'd spent 4 years in the department by that time, the letter was addressed to Mr. Tilbury. So I complained to the professor who wrote the letter, and he said, "Oh, the secretary prepares those letters." So I went to talk to the secretary, and she said, "Oh, Mr. is just the default." So I went to their little graduate school recruiting event. There was free pizza after all, and I was an undergraduate. And the professor came up to me and told me he told the story to his wife. She told him that it was wrong and he should change the system. So I was glad to hear I had made a small difference. I did go to graduate school, but not at Minnesota. And you'll be glad to hear that they finally tore down the old EE building and built a new one that has both men's and ladies' rooms. So the National Science Foundation and others, including universities and industries, have been investing in broadening participation activities for decades. There are many successful programs, bright spots with local or small-scale successes. The idea of NSF Includes is to use a collective impact approach, where we have multiple groups, each with their own networks, working together to solve the same problem, with different aspects and different tools. A network is being built, starting with 70 small-scale launch pilots that include more than 800 partner organizations that will be connected through a coordination hub and alliances that will be announced within the next few months. And then new big ideas from the community. We plan to launch this idea machine in August of this year, so stay tuned for the announcement. We will invite the public, including high school students, to submit short statements about the big ideas that will require basic research to address significant societal challenges. After we get all these ideas in, and we hope to get hundreds if not thousands of them, we will sort through them and choose a few dozen of the best to invite the authors to prepare short videos describing their ideas. We will then again invite the general public to comment on those ideas, and a blue ribbon panel will work with NSF to choose the winning ideas. Cash prizes to the best ideas may be awarded. The whole process will take about a year, at which time we might start turning the crank of the idea machine all over again. Lastly, I'd like to tell you about the newest thing that's coming out of NSF, the Convergence accelerators. Unlike small business accelerators, these have the goal of accelerating use-inspired convergent research done around some of the big ideas. The Convergence accelerators do take some ideas from commercial accelerators in that they have cohorts of teams that work together and learn from each other. They have intensive educational and mentoring components and work with strong partnerships involving academia, industry, and government, including mission-driven agencies in addition to NSF. Although the Convergence accelerators will be doing basic research, the outcomes will be more intentional in that they will be trying to solve specific problems. They'll have multiple teams all working on the same problem with different approaches, and they'll both share their findings with each other as well as compete with each other in what we call a co-opetition model. And we expect the research will progress more quickly than if they were working in isolation. So as an example, people don't seem to understand this unless we have specific examples. There's two of the big ideas that we plan to accelerate. One is the harnessing the data revolution, and you might imagine a track or a topic that's building an advanced science data infrastructure that's interoperable and has an open architecture. Like I talked about, putting the atmospheric data together with the ocean data with the Twitter feed. How would you do that? How would you make that science data infrastructure to interoperate? Or at the future of work. Perhaps you had a smart manufacturing environment where you have an adaptive collaboration between humans and machines. Or an instrumented classroom where intelligent assistants are helping the teacher and the students to learn within their room. So this is the picture that we have for how the Convergence Accelerator will work. The input is the basic research that we've been funding over the years through NSFPIs, our partners and theirs, that will come into the team seeding phase. So teams can be formed organically, where somebody calls up their friends and says, hey, do you want to work on this problem? Or we would have structured workshops to bring the potential team members together, including industry and government partners. We believe the teams need to be diverse, with faculty, students, and partners from multiple disciplines. The potential teams will write short proposals to be accepted into the work formation phase, describing who's on the team and how their expertise contributes to solving the problem. So NSF will review those short proposals to accept into the team formation. We envision the team formation to be an intense 6-month incubation process, where a cohort of about 20 teams will be working together, both cooperating and competing. They'll start with a week on-site with training on relevant technical topics. Perhaps the faculty on the teams will give short lectures. They'll also learn about team building, communication, etc. During the 6 months, they'll have weekly check-ins with a moderator or a mentor to stay on track and keep the cohort together, sharing different ideas. At the end of 6 months, they'll come back together in the same place and do a pitch at the end of that 6-month phase. And after the 20-minute pitch, we'll decide who gets the big grants to do the accelerated research. So even though the decision is based on a 20-minute pitch, the mentors and program officers will have interacted with these teams over the 6-month formation period, and they'll have a lot of information on which to base that decision for the very large grants. And then we expect this accelerated research will continue with the cohorts staying together, working on on this same problem in a much deeper fashion, keeping together with regular check-ins through the moderators. At the end of the accelerated research phase, whether it's a year or 2 years, we haven't decided, we expect to award some prizes to the best teams. So this Convergence Accelerator builds a lot on things that we've done already at the National Science Foundation. With the I-Core, we have a network model with teams and cohorts that come together to start small companies. This isn't trying to start companies, it's trying to advance research. I mentioned the collective impact model on NSF Includes, and we've done a lot of team development with the Ideas Lab and industry workshops. So the new twists in the Convergence Accelerators are we'll select the winners of the grant funding by a pitch instead of a proposal, and the competition for monetary prizes. So that's the very brief summary of the 10 big ideas for future investments by the National Science Foundation, and I'll leave you with a quote from our director, who's very excited to see these big ideas move forward. Thank you very much. Do you want me to take some questions, or you should go to the next part of the program?
Please go ahead.
Questions?
Yes, question.
I heard in the news today that President Trump wants NSF to work with Arbor on AI and what are the steps that they're planning to do for AI and machine learning with the other form.
So we have a lot of programs in AI and machine learning at the National Science Foundation. I don't know if any of them are in connection with DARPA, but we have worked a lot with other agencies, including the Air Force. Also on Wednesday, we signed a memorandum with the Air Force about collaboration with them on basic research. So I don't have any specifics on exactly what we're going to do with DARPA, but we are looking to increase our partnerships both with industry and with government agencies in many areas of mutual interest, and everyone's interested in artificial intelligence these days. So that's definitely one of the topics. Yes?
How do you interact with the members of Congress and Senate?
How do I
Interact
with the members of the House and the Senate? Me personally, or NSF? I guess. So we talk to them regularly. We have a legislative affairs group that does most of the talking. The staffers from the Senate committee that oversees NSF visited NSF on Monday and spent the whole day talking with us about what our priorities were and what our plan is for the fiscal year 19 budget. So we have a good communication with them about what our budget plans are and what our new things are going on. So, I mean, I don't, personally as the Director of Engineering, I don't meet with them on a regular basis, but I've been there almost a year and I've probably met with them, I don't know, 6 times, so reasonably often. Does that answer your question? Okay. Yes?
So how would institutions prepare for the Convergence Accelerators competition? And how do you see it would fit into the model we typically have for PIs starting out as assistant professors in academic institutions?
So we're still working on how the solicitation is going to look for the Convergence Accelerator, so I don't have any specifics. And of course, if I had the specifics, I couldn't tell you, but I can tell you we don't have the specifics yet. So, but we would imagine that if you had an idea and knew the team you wanted, you could start trying to form your team around. We know the two big ideas will be the harnessing the data revolution and the future of work at the human technology frontier. So those are the big ideas, and trying to bring the partners together and the team, I think, is a good way to get started, even while we're coming up with our details of the plan. In terms of assistant professors, I think the Convergence Accelerators are going to be different than what we've done before, in that the research is going to be a little bit more directed or goal-oriented. On the other hand, I think if the assistant professor is passionate about this, there is a huge opportunity to have a big impact. And I don't know about your university, but at my university, the biggest thing that they're going to look for at tenure time is what's the impact of your research. I mean, how many papers is a good metric and how many dollars is a good metric, but the really big metric is impact. And so I think it does have a potential to have a big impact if the person is really passionate about it and thinks that it's right up what they want to be doing. So I wouldn't advise it for everyone, but I wouldn't say no either. How's that? Yes?
Is this open before your university?
Excuse me?
Is that program only open before your university?
I think there would be opportunities for many different kinds of people to participate.
And then I participated in a challenge with the community college.
Great.
We're still reading the reports from there.
Great. Great.
So, I didn't know if that would be a process for community college to apply for that also.
I can't imagine we would put in a restriction, but we haven't written the solicitation yet. So stay tuned. Yes.
How would you describe the state of U.S. education and engineering?
The state of U.S. education and engineering. So I haven't done a survey. I can tell you that the enrollments are growing quickly. The faculty are growing, but not quite as fast as the enrollments. I think our graduate education is still at the top of the world from the studies that I've seen. I think undergraduate education, is also quite strong. So worldwide, that's my sense. I haven't done any detailed comparisons, but it's becoming a very popular major. So there's strong interest from the students, but the diversity is a challenge. So I don't know if that's I don't have a pinpointed answer to that one. Yes?
It's my impression, please correct me if I'm wrong, that the majority of NSF grants, most of the funding that is granted by the NSF goes to the major, large research institutions. And there are many smaller public and private institutions who have a research capability or a research ambition that is maybe difficult for them to actually develop. Are there programs at the NSF to try to improve the opportunities for these sort of second tier, if you want to call it that, institutions?
So I don't know of anything specific for, there are specific programs for community colleges, you mentioned one. There are specific programs for universities or colleges that only have undergraduate programs. So research at undergraduate institutions, there are programs for that. And I think from my experience, NSF is pretty open to good ideas from many different places. So I don't know that there needs to be a special program. We have special programs for states that don't have a lot of NSF funding. The F-score program for states that get less than a certain percentage of NSF funding. I forget. I can't list off the names, but the program's called F-score. You could look it up. A lot of them are small population states. So we have some programs like that, but as for specific institutions, not that I know off the top of my head, but some of the smaller institutions have been quite successful in getting NSF funding too. So it takes you need to write a good proposal. Maybe we can talk offline.